Need some suspension work and shocks and brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, rear end.
Ka-chow.
Just don't see no cars! It works! I love this button!
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
All right, welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Car Podcast, recording at you live from Southern California, because today we're talking about Shelby American, a documentary about Carroll Shelby from 2019, directed by Nate Adams and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I forgot what we were doing. When you said Southern California, I was like, it's been a long time. We've had a little hiatus
To
here.
break the third ear here for a second,
yeah.
or the fourth ear.
Yep.
We haven't recorded a podcast in close to a month, maybe?
True.
Just because I've been traveling and then you've been traveling.
Yes, right.
So we've both been out of town, but you guys wouldn't even notice that because we're so good at scheduling our content weekly that you shouldn't actually notice.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was about to say happy birthday to me, but that actually passed by the time this episode comes out.
Well, belated happy birthday.
Thanks.
I forgot.
I thought it was interesting that Adam Carolla directed it. Are you familiar with Adam Carolla at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Loveline. He did Loveline with Dr. Drew, which I am
a
huge Dr. Drew fan now.
Are you?
He has a new podcast with Tom Segura, who's my favorite comedian.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. It's very good. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, but Adam Carolla, when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
I'm surprised he's not in the movie.
Right.
I'm surprised he didn't put himself in the movie, being such a big car guy.
Yes. But
he didn't even get a single comment in.
No, and I think it's funny, too, because he's a comedian, so maybe he didn't want to come off as, oh, this is a snarky comedian kind of thing.
But also, it seems like they put every living person from Carroll Shelby's life in the movie because there are so many people in this film.
If you walked past Carroll Shelby's house, you were in this documentary.
Yeah, they interviewed his dog sitter. They interviewed the guy who sold him his prescriptions. It was so many people.
Yeah,
and normally we do wait 10 minutes for spoilers.
I know, that's what I was going to say. So,
but there's no real spoilers in this movie because it's a documentary.
It's real life.
So it already happened. It's,
Yeah, no, shout out to Craig Lieberman.
Shout out Craig Lieberman.
And I want to do a special shout out to Paul Shin.
Oh, yeah, Paul Shin, shout out.
Because Paul Shin actually sent us some really cool merch.
I'm wearing his shirt right now.
Oh, you are? That's right. That's awesome.
It says, I am the warranty.
Yes.
Which I've actually been wearing now for about 40 hours straight.
And it's holding up quite well.
It is.
Yeah, so Paul, thank you. Big shout out to you. You're one of our biggest fans, I think.
I think so. And
listeners.
On my latest travels, I was thinking we need to pay Paul a visit.
Yes.
Out in California.
I agree. We need to do that. Yeah.
Definitely, because I do want to film his Model A's. We were talking about that, about possibly doing that.
So this is a forewarning, Paul.
Oh yeah, this is a warning.
We're coming out there. No, it's. I did want to say thanks because that was so cool that he did that. We got a package in the mail and it was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool.
If you have a T-shirt for us to wear, send it to blah, blah,
blah. We'll figure that out. Leave a note.
Leave a comment and then we'll set up an email.
Yeah, we'll figure out something for you. But
yeah, getting back to the movie, what did you think?
Very interesting. A fascinating movie as far as I was concerned. Really interesting to see this. It really made him out to be, and as he was, a true person. But you could see a lot of sides of him that weren't evident in the movie because we just talked about the movie.
Right, so this is sort of a companion episode to last episode, which we talked about Ford versus Ferrari, the immensely popular film.
Yes. One of my favorites now. Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
hands
me too.
Down, one of my favorite movies.
And so this was a documentary where Ford versus Ferrari was a fictionalized film with Christian Bale and Matt Damon and all, a huge cast. This is an actual documentary talking about the life of Carroll Shelby, and it talks about the events of Ford versus Ferrari, but it expands a lot more on those events, and it expands on a lot more of his life.
It does.
Which is really good.
So from that standpoint, I'll let you know some of my critiques or whatever in a minute, but I want to know how you felt about the movie. What did you think of the movie? There's a pause
here's
there.
The thing. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
I felt like they spent a lot of time on parts that didn't matter.
Yep.
And not enough time on cool parts that did matter, at least to me.
Yeah.
And what I wrote down here, like I said, I've been traveling a lot. I've been to 2 car museums in the last 6 days.
Yeah.
And I wrote down as a note that while I was watching this feels like a movie that would be playing in a museum. That they would have a Shelby Cobra out on the floor.
Right.
And it'd be roped off, and then thered be like a mannequin with Shelby's racing gear on, and then a little flat screen TV, and this would just be playing on it. Because I felt...
Carroll Shelby.
Yeah. Like I felt like, I'd kind of glance up at it, and they'd be talking about, the development of the... they'd be talking about the development of the Daytona.
Yeah.
And then I'd go, oh, cool, there's a Daytona right here, and I'd look at it, and I'd walk around it, see all the angles of it, and then I'd be like, oh, what else is over there? And then I'd kind of continue walking. So it definitely felt like, and again, I preface this by saying I've been to 2 museums recently.
Right.
They had a lot of that stuff up.
Where it's
absolutely. Like a little exhibit, you watch 30 seconds of a looped VHS tape, and then you kind of get on your merry
with the streaks
you kind of get on your merry
VHS
way.
tape,
So
I
I think it's filled with a lot of good information. I also fully realize that I'm not the true target market.
Probably
in
not,
terms of, I don't even really consider myself a Ford fan, which is interesting because we own one of the oldest Fords.
True.
The 31 Model A that we own. I never see a Ford on the road and think, oh, I own a Ford.
No,
it never
do I.
crosses my mind that that's the Model A is almost its own thing.
Right.
It's not even like a Ford product.
I don't think of it.
At least in my mind. So like I don't have this love for Carroll Shelby. I don't have this like I respect the hell out of him, obviously. But I don't have this draw towards him that a lot of people do.
Well, and it's interesting you say that because I respect him as a human being and the fact that he did so many cool things. But it was interesting, and the movie did a good job at this, showing the good and the bad, which was great to show both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, there were different things, and they didn't spend nearly enough time on his marriages. I think it would have been more fun. They briefly skimmed over.
They're like, oh, by the way, no one knows how many people he actually married anyway, and it was like, what?
It was like,
how do you lose track?
Right.
And then one of the guys said,
by the way,
one of the guys was like, oh, the girls thought that they were married to him. And I'm like, what does that mean?
And we know people that have been married many times and whatever, and that's fine. But it was funny to me that they skimmed over it. I thought, wow, that's a fun, interesting thing.
Yeah.
Why would you not?
That's exactly what I meant by they skipped over some stuff that was so interesting.
Yeah.
And I another one of my notes that I wrote down here was the 70s and 80s for him kind of lost decades.
Yeah.
At least breezed over in the film.
Right.
He did do some notable stuff in the 80s that we'll talk about later, but the 70s, after his racing career pretty much ended in the late 60s.
Yes.
They just breezed over the 70s and most of the 80s.
And you remember, too, and I agree with you completely, and you remember, too, last time when we were talking about Ford versus Ferrari, at the beginning of that conversation, I said, wow, I didn't know Carroll Shelby was a driver. That he was a race car driver. Holy cow, he was a driver.
Yes.
He was an amazing driver.
That's why I was super excited to watch this movie because you didn't even know that about Carroll Shelby. I at least knew he was a racing car driver. I didn't know all that stuff. But
I think the big thing that he will be remembered for, chili. Just chili. just chili.
What was that? They were like, oh, by the way, towards the end of his life, he just started holding chili competitions.
Chili
and it was like every
competitions.
state had their own Carroll Shelby.
Carroll Shelby chili, and a lot of people know that. A lot of people know Carroll Shelby chili.
Yeah,
They really do, and it's like that's how they know him. And I'm like,
that's
wow.
wild to me.
It is, because there's so much to this guy, and then let's remember him with chili, which is not a bad thing. I love chili, but
it was interesting in the movie. They talked about how his name carried such a weight.
Well, yes, because he made it that way.
Yeah.
He made it that way. He marketed his name.
He put his name on everything. Yeah. And Exhibit A is the baked beans competitions.
Right.
Or chili, sorry.
Yeah.
Was it
Doesn't matter. Beans, chili, whatever. No, it was chili. It was the chili cook-offs,
yeah, okay. So it's chili.
Which were really cool. And I remember those, by the way.
But every car he's ever built.
Yeah.
I've driven, I think, only one Shelby car.
Yeah.
Which was a Mustang that we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
Every car I've ever seen built by him, he signs the dash in huge silver marker. Yeah. His name's on the front, back, left, right, side.
Yep.
If you drop a lug nut, in the middle of the highway, it's going to say Carroll Shelby on it.
Somewhere
it's probably going to have a mailing address.
Microprint in Carroll Shelby. Really, that's what he did, and he was the quintessential salesman. He was a salesman through and through. You could tell when they were talking about how he worked with his coworkers, which I thought was such a fun. We're past 10 minutes, so I can give away some things. He had such a fun group of people putting cars together. It was the hot rod group in the beginning, and they all loved building these cars and adding to things. And that in itself could have been a movie where, you had this ragtag team of young hot rod builder kids, and they all get together. And then some of them, like the one, I can't remember the name because it's been a while, but his main designer was like a genius when it came to, honestly,
rejected the idea of the Daytona at first.
Yes.
Which was very interesting.
Yes.
He was this hotshot designer, not hotshot. He was like this really well-renowned designer.
Yeah.
And when he said the design wouldn't work, everyone else in the shop said it wouldn't work just because he said it.
Yes.
Not because they looked at anything else.
I would say, and I'm gonna give this to you, Adam. Adam Carolla. I'm gonna call him Adam.
He's a listener. He's a listener.
Yeah.
You know what? Call him Toyota Corolla. Listen here, Toyota Corolla XE.
If you want to do another movie about Carroll Shelby, it's the Daytona. Seriously, I think that would be a cool movie.
Well, I'll push that a little bit further. That idea.
Oh,
We're just giving you free ideas here, Toyota Corolla. Netflix series.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
Oh yeah.
There's so much to talk about. So much racing in the 50s. So much racing in the 60s.
Yes.
So much. I mean, it would be interesting for just to do like a show, like a dramatic short series.
Yeah.
And there's so many decades you'd be able to play with. Yeah. Like, you watched WandaVision, right?
A little. I didn't watch all of it. I watched a couple episodes, and then I just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah,
so.
well, it's kind of a forgettable show. I honestly don't remember most of the plot. But
right.
The cool thing about WandaVision, and I assume this would have been the cool part about working on WandaVision, is that each episode, it progressed to a different decade of television.
Oh.
So there's the 50s one, which was black and white.
The first one,
and very like, oh, honey, very much like that. Side note, I got really into the Twilight Zone recently.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's cool. It's fun. Good for
I
you.
went on Tower of Terror at Disney
You
World.
I heard you did.
Yeah, I did it twice. That's the only.
I don't even know this. I'm your dad. I don't even know.
That's the only ride I rode twice that day.
Really?
Yeah, and the entrance to Tower of Terror is so cool.
Is it?
Because there's the guy, Rod Sterling. He does
Rod
like
Serling, yeah.
Serling, sorry.
Right, yeah, no, that's right, yeah.
Which actually he died before the ride came out.
Ooh.
So they got a voice double to do it, and they animated it. It is so spot on.
Yeah.
I did all this research in the car on the ride home.
Was it an animatronics guy or what?
No,
was it?
it was just you go into like a library, and there's like
Okay.
spider webs on everything and dust and.
Okay. By the way, we never get sidetracked.
We never get sidetracked. And there's an old style TV.
Yep.
And it plays like an episode of The Twilight Zone, where it's like in a world.
Yeah.
Which I found out that guy smoked 3 to 4 packs of cigarettes a day.
Oh, I'm sure.
He died
sure.
at 50. So he died like 20 years before this ride came out.
Yeah, he constantly smoked.
Yeah,
like
he
all
was-
the time.
yeah.
Every picture you see of him is a
It's
cigarette.
Wild. But
Maybe
anyway,
3 or 4 cigarettes. I don't know, but yeah. So he's
it's just his mouth is
just a
full.
mouthful of cigarettes.
He ran out of time. He would just eat them. He wouldn't even smoke them. He didn't have enough time in the day to smoke them down. He'd just chew it.
Put him in a blender and make a smoothie of a tobacco smoothie. Okay, so yeah.
But I found out his wife, who like outlived him by like 40 years.
Yeah, she probably didn't smoke.
Yeah.
This is probably- sorry, Rod Serling was such a cool guy.
Such
so,
a cool
yeah.
guy. She chose the voice actor to
Oh,
do.
nice.
Disney had picks.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Because a
And-
lot of people do that voice. A lot of people imitate Rod Serling.
Yeah.
They do. And so to choose a good one would be
But
good,
it was spot on,
Yeah.
and they play this little episode, and they show like, the elevator gets struck by lightning or something, and then you walk out and you get into the elevator car, and it
Yeah.
goes up and does all the thing. The
Yeah.
do-do-do-do-do-do-do,
Okay,
and
cool, yeah.
there's some
Very
really
cool.
cool effects. There's
Yeah.
like holograms and what?
And this has to do with Carroll Shelby.
I forgot
How?
why I brought up the Twilight. Oh, 'cause-
So you're
Oh, jeez, this is real off the path. I was talking about decades, and
Yeah.
the Twilight Zone is from like the 50s and 60s,
yes.
right? And then in WandaVision, they did like the 80s, like family multicam sitcoms
Oh,
and
right.
stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Right.
I think if they did getting back to it finally, if they did a Carroll Shelby short series,
Yeah.
the creators would have a lot of fun because you would
Yeah.
you would have so many different decades of costumes and decades of style and things like
Yeah.
that you could
Yeah.
really play with,
Yeah.
and you could take it all the way up till the 2000s if you did an episode a decade, or if
Yeah.
you did even a
Right.
season a decade.
I think that's an awesome idea, and that would be a lot of fun. I will produce it. I'm looking for an executive producer. Just going to throw it out there. Executive producer
we
wanted.
do have $151 million.
Well, yeah, but
So-
we're pretty tight with our money though.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah.
But anyway, I think it would be a very interesting miniseries. I
Yeah.
feel like for the documentary, like I said earlier, they breezed over a lot of stuff
Yeah,
that I
they
wanted
did-
to hear
they
more
did.
about,
Yeah.
and they really slowed down at parts that I already knew
Right,
about.
Yes, and
So.
to a painful crawl in
Right.
some of those points. I think part of it too for me, and this was the difficulty that I had with it. This was the hard part for me, was that everything was an interview and there was no narrator to carry it through. For something this long, I expected that you would have had someone who would have been more like you were talking about the museum. Someone who would go, in 19 blah blah blah, Carroll
Yeah.
Shelby blah blah blah, and then you'd do a bunch of the
I
interviews.
thought there was a narrator,
I don't think so.
but like,
Maybe.
he never introduced stuff like that. But
Yeah.
like, I thought at least I heard one common guy's voice. But then again, there was so many people
Yeah,
interviewed.
so many,
Like
so many, like 40,000 people were.
the
interviewed.
janitor was like, Mr. Carroll, he was good. He's very good. Like,
He was-
they literally interviewed everyone. And so,
Yes.
like, keeping the names straight
yes,
was hard,
very hard.
especially if you
And he-
missed one of the title tags. It
Yes.
was like, who is this guy?
And he has like 54 children. I mean,
Yes.
with all the different wives and stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But I mean, and they all seem like really wonderful, decent people. I think that's great. But at the same time, it was like, seriously, I could not keep track of all the kids. I couldn't keep track of all the characters.
Mhm.
I was like, wow, this is great. And so trying to keep track of all of them was actually distracting to me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. Oh, wait a minute. So what are you saying? And then they all had a different take and a different cadence. So if someone would have tied it together, if they
Right.
would have had somebody like when we do our series for Netflix,
Yeah.
we'll have a narrator who ties it all together, and then the interviews and keep the.
Oh,
the
I was
interview-
thinking our series for Netflix be like a dramatization, like a Ford
Oh,
versus
well,
Ferrari
yeah,
style.
you could do that. Yeah, I mean, that's not. Yeah, okay. I don't know.
But no, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
They should have interviewed less people. And
Yeah.
there was so many people from Ford. Like
Yeah.
Edsel Ford II
Yes.
was in it.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
his
yeah.
son, which I forgot his name.
Well,
like Danny Ford or something.
there was Henry Ford III, I believe, right?
Was that
Wasn't
the
it?
third then?
Maybe
Because he was talking about, I think it was his grandpa was Henry Ford II.
Could have been, yeah.
So do they just keep switching back between Edsel and Henry, Edsel and Henry?
Maybe
Edsel and
that's
Henry?
a law in their family or
maybe.
something. I don't know.
Which it's so funny because I guess Henry Ford III was trying so hard to defend his grandfather,
yes.
who was
yeah.
an ass
Yeah.
for most of
sorry,
his
but it's
life.
the truth. It's it's,
Which I understand. You're not going to come into a documentary and be like, yeah, my grandpa sucked. But
could be.
just I think that was my big critique, was that there was just too many people in this movie.
There was a lot, and they switched between them a lot, and some of them had a natural ability to tell a story and to share stuff, and other people didn't.
Some people didn't even have the natural ability to talk.
No.
There was a race car driver, God bless his soul,
yes,
but
yes.
time had not been too kind to him, and it was
At least
real
not-
hard to understand.
It was
Although I do love the fact that they kind of preserved that sort of legacy and got the story
that's all
firsthand
good.
from a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, yes, and my favorite quote from that guy was
That was my favorite quote as well. Because that quote
That
could be
literally-
slid into wherever in the movie.
It was like he literally
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
So and that was something that really kind of took away from it, which was too bad, because again, you could have had a narrator talk about it, give the big picture, and then you had a couple people talking and kind of filling in things, and you have the real life stuff. Lots and lots of footage and pictures.
Yeah. Tons of really cool archive footage.
Yeah.
They have that really cool shot of Ken Miles. I think he's in a Cobra or something.
Yeah.
And it's the camera's mounted on the floor and he's shifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the footage is so surprisingly smooth.
Yeah.
And I know that because I film in cars.
Yep.
All day long.
You do?
And it's my job. And
Right.
even recently, on this recent trip I went, my camera was a little shakier than I would
Was
have
it?
liked. Yeah.
Oh.
I messed up my GoPro settings,
Wow.
which is another podcast. But
Okay.
the
Yeah.
GoPro settings now are so complex. I literally sneezed and changed all the settings.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
it was impressive how stabilized the footage was, and you have to remember what kind of camera they were dealing with in the early 60s to bolt to the floor.
Yeah.
It wasn't a GoPro like
No.
me where you suction cup it down
Yeah.
and either hit record or you have a Bluetooth remote to
Right.
hit record while he's out there.
Yeah.
They're putting physical film into these
Yes.
giant
Yes.
reels. It's probably
Yes.
weighing down the car, at least some sort.
Yeah. I
you
would
know?
imagine that was probably 16 millimeter, but yeah.
Still, I mean,
Still,
you have this
it's-
huge chunky box.
Yeah, you do. And it's very clunky box, and it's big.
And there's
heavy,
a
you're right.
viewfinder, but you don't really know how the footage is going to turn
Nah,
out
you don't.
until
No idea.
a week later when you get it developed.
That's right. That is absolutely
So
right. Yeah.
just like
so-
the cool automotive shots that they got back then were pretty nuts.
Yeah, it was so fun to see the cars back then and the design, and oh my gosh, that Spider, or the Daytona.
Yeah,
I call it the Daytona Spider, but that's it wrong.
I think it's
the
the Cobra
Daytona.
Daytona.
Yeah, it is. I think it's the
And
Cobra
then the Daytona Spider was I think the Ferrari was the Daytona Spider.
Well, and yes,
Whatever it was, yeah.
could have been. It could have been, but to me, it was absolutely fascinating how they designed the Daytona, and then how much it just dominated.
Yeah.
It just creamed every other car. I mean, it was faster. And I thought about that. I was like, wow, could it really be that design was that much faster? That was, and it must have been. Absolutely, they proved it. It must have been.
Yeah,
So
I
just
loved
really crazy.
two parts of that design I really loved. The back that's chopped off.
Yes, yeah,
And
that's
how
so
they
cool.
said they trick the air into thinking that the shape is still there, so the air continues on this route, but they don't have the extra weight.
Right.
Which is very, very interesting. You a lot of people don't understand, but you have to treat air like liquid. It flows,
Yeah,
and there's
yeah.
currents,
Yep,
and there's,
yep.
the shape of the car creates these currents.
And what was cool too about that was they had created, or they designed this thing, which was very cool, and they actually they went into a lot of detail about the design and how they did it and where it came from, and that was awesome. But then what they did was they actually showed the Daytona, and they had put these little strips of paper all over the car so that they could tell what the airflow was doing over the car, which is exactly what they did in the movie
I was
Ford
just about
versus
to point
Ferrari.
out, that was very historically accurate.
Yes.
Because most.
It really was. It was very
There
cool.
were wind tunnels at this
Right.
time,
Right.
but Shelby was not this huge corporation. They
Right.
worked out of a side shop and then
Yeah.
later an airplane hangar. They didn't have a wind tunnel,
Right.
so they would put, I think it was like pieces of string,
Yeah, it was probably
scotch
I think
taped
it was
all over the
right,
car,
right.
and then while the car was driving, you have someone with binoculars
right.
staring at the car, and you
Right.
could see when the string wasn't moving.
Right.
There wasn't any airflow there. When it was
Right.
wiggling in the wind, you'd see that's where the air is passing,
Right.
and you could see the direction of the wind because the string was long enough.
Right, and it would like stand up sometimes, depended on where the
Yeah.
how the wind forces were moving. Really, really cool, neat idea, and both in this documentary you saw it, and in Ford versus Ferrari you get to see it, and it's such a cool thing to see
Yeah.
that car covered with the strings.
Yeah.
And, all the. It seems so low tech, but it's actually not. It's super smart. And yeah, if you don't have a wind tunnel, or if you don't have quick use to a wind tunnel or whatever, great way to do it.
My other favorite part of the design of the Daytona was
Yeah.
seeing them do the metal work by hand.
Oh gosh,
They
yeah. Yeah.
made like basically a wooden shell of the car.
Yep.
It was like each slice was like
Yep.
a wooden. I want to say like a wooden horse, but that's
Yeah,
not
kind
really
of,
right.
kind of like
But
that,
it was basically a wooden design that they would put the metal over and then just bang the metal
Yeah.
until it was in that shape.
Yep.
And it's so interesting because you see the I almost said Ferrari Daytona. You see the Cobra Daytona
Mm-hmm.
and you say, "Oh, that looks like a modern car."
Yeah. Right.
It's shaped whatever.
Right.
But then you see them actually with a little hammer pounding out
Yeah.
each shape
Yeah.
of each fender. I mean, it must have took hundreds of hours just to shape the sheet metal
Yeah.
into this shape.
Well, and they have that. I think I can't remember the name of it, but there is like a metal brake where they actually. There's a metal brake where they actually make corners and all of that.
Right.
But then there's also a metal shaping tool that they slide it back and forth. There's like a wheel.
Yeah, it was like two wheels
Yeah.
that like smooths it out.
Yeah.
But the fact
Very
that
cool.
they did it by hand
Oh yeah.
and it didn't come out looking like a golf ball
Right.
is insane. Like
That-
it's actually
yeah.
insane.
That is
And,
true craftsmanship.
Again,
and metal
spoiler,
work.
we're past
Yeah,
the 10-minute
that's
mark.
fine, yeah.
The car catches fire.
Yes.
One of its first outings.
Yes.
The first thing I thought of was, oh my God, they're going to
Yeah.
have to make those body panels again. They're going to
Yeah.
have to.
That was your first thought.
That was my exact first thought. Was like they only had one of these
Wow.
cars, and I just watched them shape this metal.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, the thought of having to do that all over
it's a
again.
good thing you weren't out there. Oh, we're gonna have to reshape the metal.
Yeah.
that guy's on fire, but whatever. You got to reshape the
What
metal.
about the guy that was like, oh, I dropped my wallet, and they like jumped into the fire to get his wallet?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Dude,
Seriously, yeah, just
who
let it burn.
cares? You
Yeah,
don't
let
have a
it-
credit card. What unless you're carrying $1 million?
Yeah, no kidding. There were obviously that was the big deal. Was you saw a lot of fires and you saw a lot of people, and the biggest they were talking about the fact that was one of their biggest enemies was fire.
Yeah.
And
It's a
that's
race,
racing. So that was very, very interesting about all that stuff. And again, it was a great look into the actual reality of race car drivers. Like in the beginning, they didn't make anything. They made like no money whatsoever.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
he actually was raising chickens.
Yeah, which was very again something
So-
they sort of breezed over.
Right.
They're like overnight 20. What was it? 2,000
Like
of his
2,000 chickens
chickens
died.
just died.
Yeah.
Just randomly
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
And then Carroll Shelby was left with no business. Like literally,
Yeah.
I think they said 2 chickens survived.
Yeah, it was obviously not enough to continue the business, and it was a huge devastation. But he had to run to get to the race because he had forgotten about the race. I think he had a little bit of ADD going on.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But how do 2,000 chickens just die?
There was some sort of, he was actually giving them some vaccinations because there was something going around. There was some sickness going around.
I
and
felt
yeah.
like they just breezed over that part where
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, 2,000 chickens died. Anyway,
Right.
so
Exact-
the
and
race
so
team
you're
had
like-
chicken nuggets for the next 3 years. But anyway, They ate strictly chicken nuggets.
There was nothing but chicken. So he literally ran over to the race and still had his coveralls on. He got into the car. He won the race. And at the end, they took pictures of him getting out of the car with his coveralls on.
Yeah.
And that became his signature.
Yeah, that's like his signature look.
Exactly.
Because he's always sort of
Cowboy
carried
hat,
this idea of he's this good old boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, the Netflix description was like how Carroll Shelby turned farmer into racer.
Yeah.
Or farmer to racer to car manufacturer, something like that.
Yeah.
But like everyone's like, oh, he's just a farmer boy. He's just a good old boy, and so that's kind of where that came from.
And think about it, he was incredibly. I mean, he worked very hard. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He worked extremely hard, but at the same time, he was extremely lucky because he got the heart transplant.
Yeah. I was going to talk about that.
Amazing.
I always thought that he was just like an old man that had heart issues.
Yeah.
I never realized that he had been
It was
battling
big time.
heart issues literally his entire life.
Yes,
and
big
that's
time.
actually what ended up killing him too.
Was it?
Was a heart complication.
Oh, okay.
Which is surprising because it was after he had a heart transplant.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, if you believe in destiny or something, whatever, I mean, the fact that he went through a heart transplant, got a 25-year-old heart his junior. I think he was 50 when he, no, I think he was like 60 and he got like a 34-year-old's heart.
Yeah, something like that.
I remember it was a 34-year-old's heart. He was in, I could do the math to find his age in 1990, but I don't. No, he was 70.
He's
He was born in
okay,
1923.
But to get a young heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it was still heart failure that got him at the end of the day.
It's not, I mean, especially back then, heart transplants have come a long way, but they still, a lot of times, you're still given a certain amount of time that you're going to live. You're not going to live forever with a new heart. You are. Yeah. It's going to fail at some point, like anything. I mean, it's, because I believe it's the statistic is 98% of people die in their lifetime. Yeah. So
would have thought that would have been lower.
So no, that was Talladega Nights. That's the throwback.
Oh wow! I didn't know you were even quoting. I thought that was just a dad joke.
It was. Yeah, it is. It is. But I'm
they do those fake commercials. Speaking of which, they just put Talladega Nights on Netflix.
Did they?
Yep.
Okay.
Also, Terminator 2.
Yeah, I saw
and some other movie that I wanted to watch, but then I had to watch this one, so I was like, okay.
Wow.
Honestly, I was not super stoked to watch this movie.
Neither was I. To be honest with you, I was not that stoked to watch it. And then when I watched it upstairs in our $151 million mansion.
Yeah. Yeah. On the couch.
On the couch with our tiny little TV set. I watched it, and the audio wasn't that great. So what happened was the mix of the audio wasn't. It was really made for more of like a surround sound kind of a thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
because there was some of the music was too loud.
Yeah.
And the sound effects and music were too loud that I couldn't hear what people were saying. And then when I heard when they were saying, they were
it was the mumbling, man.
Right, it was the mumbling. So, yeah.
Which is interesting. I watched this on my Xbox. I didn't notice any audio issues.
Well, because you had probably a mono. You were doing so you probably didn't have a super stereo system. The TV upstairs has, I think, multiple
$151 million stereo system.
It is a really expensive stereo system.
But
I think
it was
$40 at Walmart or something. Yeah.
I just think if you were really into Shelby, I think this would be a good movie for you.
Oh yeah.
But I'm really not.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah.
There was some stuff that I was like, oh, that's cool, and then there was some stuff like, yeah, that was kind of a jerky thing that he did. He was kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
And not to throw shade or anything, but it was like, it painted him like it should, a documentary that he was a human being, that he had good points and bad points. And what was interesting though was that watching this documentary after watching Ford versus Ferrari was great because you got to see how movies make real life more slick. Like, it really was. The movie presented the whole story in such a wonderful way, in such a sing-song rhythm. Okay, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And this documentary was like, hey, guess what? During that whole thing of Ford versus Ferrari and the races, Le Mans, there was other stuff going on in his life.
Yeah, Ford was trying to get him to do the GT350.
Right. Yes.
They were moving from, which I did notice the movie Ford versus Ferrari breezed over when they just moved to an airplane hangar.
Yes.
They just start in the hangar, and you're just like, okay. But I get what you're saying, because if I had only seen this documentary and not watched Ford versus Ferrari, I think the winning race at Le Mans, when Ford finally wins, I don't think I fully would have understood what happened.
Right.
Because they had 80 different people explaining what happened in the race. They were talking about so many different aspects of the race that it was almost like not enough time was devoted to just... You know what I mean? Like, it was like when two people try to tell you a story of what happened one night, and you're getting two different angles of it back and forth, and then you have to piece it together in your head.
Exactly.
Ford versus Ferrari, they pieced it together for you.
Exactly.
They just present it to you.
It was a nice, neat, simplified story. Here it is. And boom, boom, boom. Sing song, blah, blah, blah. And it was there was a pattern to it and everything, and it went along very nicely.
Which Ford versus Ferrari should be a Broadway musical. But go on.
Not sure how you would do that. Not sure. However, we did talk in another podcast about electric cars on the stage. Remember that? We talked about, I think maybe Herbie the Love Bug or something that you would actually put
So I have an addition to that.
Oh, boy. Here
I'm
we
sorry.
go.
I'm going to keep talking about my Disney trip. I got back yesterday.
Wow, okay.
It's
a small
I saw
world.
Lightning McQueen
What?
from Cars. They had an animatronic Lightning McQueen, and it was so realistic.
Really?
It was insane. Like, his mouth moved, his eyes moved. It was a full-size car, and he came out on stage.
How did the mouth move?
I don't know. It looked like it was a screen, but I think it was a rear projection from inside the car.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll show you a
right.
video
Yeah,
after the podcast.
Okay.
It's very strange. But, like, his full suspension, he was, like, emoting. Like, his wheel was, like, going up into the wheel. Like, I think up until recently, he was the most expensive animatronic at Disney.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
but,
well, that's very cool. I mean, what a great spend, though, because if you're going to do anything animatronic, Lightning McQueen is the one to do.
Yeah, it was so cool. I'll show you the video later.
You also, I think, didn't you send something about the post of the movie poster was trying too hard? Who sent that? It was like a flipped over Lightning McQueen.
Oh, I might have sent that to you or something. Yeah, it was like
your Instagram.
The third poster for Cars 3.
Yes.
It's just like
flipped over.
Yeah, it's Lightning McQueen crashing.
Yeah.
And it just says like June 15th or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't even say Cars 3 on it.
Yeah. And you said something like trying too hard or something.
I think I retweeted it or something.
Yeah,
I think I posted on Twitter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like this poster goes so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's such like a hard something we do need to do after our next few movies, which we'll announce at the end of this show.
Right. Are we almost to that?
Yeah, we are.
The new section. Okay, so the next one's okay. All right, cool. All right.
Which this will all make sense later.
Yeah, never mind what I just said.
I'm wiping my hand from left to right in the air. This will all make sense later. We should do Cars 2 soon.
Really?
Because I watched it on the way back from Utah.
Okay. Are you going to make me watch that one?
I am.
Go ahead. Okay.
Because it's such an offshoot from the original one.
Okay.
They're spies.
Yeah, but that's
it makes no sense.
Right. That's what I mean.
But then, here's the thing. Here's what I've heard. So Cars 2 is one of my girlfriend's favorite movies.
What?
Because she says it's so absurd, it's fun to quote, and like it's not. She's not like, yes, this is a good film.
Okay.
She made me watch it. She couldn't believe her eyes that I hadn't
then
seen
you're gonna
it.
make me watch it. Wow.
Well, but here's the thing.
Right.
I hear from everyone else that the third movie is a really true return to form.
Oh, okay.
And that it's actually really good.
All right.
So in order to get there,
you have to go through 2.
We have to go through 2.
Okay. I'll sacrifice myself to watch 2.
I also have another themed season of videos that we'll talk about after the podcast.
Right,
has to do with February. February is going to be a theme month. Anyway.
Okay.
So getting back to Shelby American.
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, that's right. We're talking about
Shelby.
It's
I started talking about. Oh, anyway. So the Ford versus Ferrari Broadway show.
Yes.
Could very easily be done now that the
Ba-da-ba-da-bow.
Lightning McQueen technology has been advanced
is
so
true.
far.
That is true.
They could easily have the cars out there and just get, some hungry Broadway kid to start singing.
I'm Ken Miles. I'm Ken Miles. Hey, I'm gonna
Ken
do
Miles, he's Ken Miles. Yeah, and then
And
it's
I'm
spinning
racist.
and stuff, and he's dancing with a wrench. He's got a wrench in his arm, and he's all covered
and
in oil.
And at the end, he throws the wrench. That's like the end of it, because he throws it in.
Oh,
George
yeah.
Price, so
Yeah,
and then
it'll be like a
off stage. You hear something shatter.
Or that'd be great.
See,
He
wouldn't that
throws
be
it off
great?
stage,
He
and then
throws it
it's
off
just
stage,
like
and you hear,
the intern has to hit
yeah.
the button where it's like shh.
See, we've got this all planned out.
You know what this feels like
Yeah.
on TikTok? I know you're not on TikTok.
I'm not on the ticks or the talks. No. Yeah.
Someone made a joke video where they're like, "What if we did a Ratatouille musical?"
Ah, okay.
And it
All right.
became this thing
Yeah.
where like this
Did it
girl
happen?
was singing about Ratatouille, and then this other guy posted and he did a song about Ratatouille, and it just kept growing and
Right.
growing, and someone ended up writing it down, and they wrote a full Ratatouille musical
What?
based off of people just
Okay.
like singing in their kitchens.
Ah.
And then it was like literally set designers were like, it would be really cool if we did this, and then like you've seen Ratatouille, right?
I have
or you
seen
know the
Ratatouille.
concept.
Yeah.
So the rat is like under the hat.
yes.
So they were going to do like a balcony. So the rat was up on the balcony. It was like a full-size guy in a rat costume. But then down below is what's happening. Like they did like set design. They did choreography for this
Wow,
Ratatouille musical.
All
I
right.
think we could do it for Ford versus Ferrari.
I think I got it. At one point where Ken Miles goes to Carroll Shelby and they have that fight, it'll be we're gonna fight.
Well, I was thinking,
it's kind of a West
what
Side
about
Story
a fun,
fight.
What if we did a fun little twist? Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles in love with each other. I know we're spilling into like fan fiction here, but I feel like for Broadway,
Well, I think that I
know?
mean there was like a bromance going on there.
Yeah.
They did totally appreciate each other
Yeah.
and what they could do. There's no doubt about that. And actually getting back to the real Carroll Shelby, he was the kind of person that did encourage people. He did try
Yeah.
to make people feel good, but encourage them in a way that he was like, no, we're going to do this and we're going to get it done. And talk about a guy who just goes out there and does it. Holy crap.
yeah.
He just went out there and did it.
A
See how I
part-
pulled all this back?
Yeah, you took me out of my musical.
Well, we could talk
yeah.
about the musical. but-
Maybe later.
yeah.
Maybe that'll be like a bonus episode.
Right. Yes.
Where we plan out this musical.
Yeah.
I think it could be a hit. And then
I
they
think
do
so,
Enzo
too.
Ferrari tipping his cap. That would be like a real big
He's-
moment.
He's on the stage of the second floor of a stage
Yeah.
set piece where he's like tipping the hat. But
Yeah.
I tip my hat to you.
Well, it would be in Italian. It would be
Oh,
like
I tip
spaghetti and meatball.
I tip my hat to you.
Oh my goodness.
That's just
Anyway,
really bad. Yes.
A part of the documentary I really liked is that they talked about Carroll Shelby would come into the
Yeah.
shop and he'd always say nice weld.
yes.
He'd say nice
That-
job, and I think
yes.
positive reinforcement from a boss is
Yep.
so important, so
I
critical.
Completely agree with
Um,
that. Absolutely.
Even positive reinforcement from coworkers,
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah.
since I don't really have coworkers,
Yeah.
just other people that
Yeah.
do the same
Yep.
thing as me.
Yeah.
When people like my friend Caleb,
Yeah.
he has 550,000 subscribers,
Jeez.
500,000 subscribers,
Wow.
and we did a podcast together and we were just talking and stuff, and he's like, I see he's like, you work really hard.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that was like the biggest
Yeah.
compliment I could ever receive, because
It's
it was
awesome.
from someone else
And you do.
who does the same thing.
Right. I mean, it
Um,
is. You're absolutely right, though. But
So that
To
makes a
that-
working environment so much better. But go on.
absolutely, to your point, when you said that he said, and they mentioned this in the documentary, that he said to the person, "That's a nice weld." By the way, if you ever weld,
Yeah.
that is a huge compliment, because welding is an art. It is a physical thing that you do, but I'm telling you, a good weld is.
Hard to come by.
It is absolutely, and
It
so
really is an art.
it
It's
is.
a talent.
It is.
It's a skill.
I've seen people weld and they do that. They call it the stack of dimes, where it looks like a stack of dimes.
I
And-
think it's an Instagram page now. Is Stack
Is
of
it?
Dimes?
Yeah. It's such a cool thing to be able to do, but it takes a ton of practice. And if you do it well, a good solid weld is just absolutely artwork. And just
Yeah.
So what a great thing to tell someone, because that says a lot.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just a patronizing thing to say. It was like, hey, that's a good weld. That's really good.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that keeps these guys there working at 2:00 in the morning on a car, because that's what passion
that's what's
they
going
had
to
for
keep
it.
people loyal to you, is that
Absolutely.
if you treat them like a human being
Yep.
and treat them like an adult.
Yep.
I think that goes a really long way.
This is some free business advice
Yeah.
that we're giving everyone.
We're actually just going to start a TikTok account where we give out advice. There's so many advice people on TikTok.
Seriously?
Like how to make 6 figures right out of high school. And it's like, first of all, buy a $3 million house, sell it for $4 million. Like it's the dumbest advice in the world. So we're going to start an advice account.
Hey, I got plenty of dumb advice I could do on the Ticks and the Talks. Yeah, I've got all that stuff. I don't know.
should do it.
Is it TikTok? Is that
It
how
is
you spell-
TikTok,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
It's basically the reincarnation of Vine. If you remember Vine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now you can do minute-long videos, and I think they actually just upped it to 3-minute-long videos.
Oh, okay.
All
right. So I've never
TikTok
been on
is
it,
an
so I don't know.
insane. I know you've never been on it, and I actually mentioned that in the podcast with Caleb. I said that you've never been on TikTok,
Never.
but I think you'd be able to open the app and be able to use it
Maybe.
because they have like editing software built in.
Oh, okay.
And it's super easy to
All right,
use, which I think
okay.
is part of
All right.
TikTok's whole thing. The other thing is that as soon as you swipe up, there's another video ready for you.
Oh.
So you can just you can literally swipe for 24 hours and never hit the same video. You could
Wow.
it just
Okay. All
keeps
right.
going,
All right.
and it's incredibly addicting.
Well, because I have endless time.
Right.
I have no
I waste hours on TikTok
I'm
though.
sure,
Like
yeah.
I have to like not look at it all day, and then like right before bed I'll scroll through some. But
is Ford versus Ferrari the musical on TikTok? Not
it
yet.
can be on
It can be.
TikTok.
We could do that.
The issue is that I think we can only post minute-long videos.
Okay.
So it would be like, but people do that. They're like part 42, and then it's like, yeah, and they just continue doing whatever. It's like part
okay.
40, or they like swipe and follow for part 4.
Can you do that? Can you swipe and follow?
Well, like they want you to follow them,
All
so,
right.
or like what people will intentionally do.
Yeah.
So it'll be like, a lot of people do like murder mystery stuff. And
Oh,
they'll be
okay.
like, and the killer was swipe for next part. And it's like,
okay.
shut.
You know who probably never used TikTok was Carroll Shelby.
Mainly because he died before its conception. Although you know what? You know what?
What?
He did he? I don't.
He
Oh
was
no!
such a Renaissance guy too. I mean,
He
so
could have
Really?
potentially
Yeah.
used Vine
oh yeah,
because
that's
he
right.
died in 2012.
Yeah. So
I used it in 2013, but it could have been in beta in 2012.
True.
There's
and
a
he probably
slight
would've had it,
chance
yeah.
in this world
Yeah.
where
Somewhere there's a
Carroll
Vine.
Shelby could have made a Vine. I'm Carroll Shelby. Because I also saw there's a statistic
Yep.
that technically speaking, Rosa Parks could have seen Shrek.
What?
She died like a week or 2 after Shrek came out. And they're like, it's statistically possible that Rosa
Wow.
Parks could have seen the original Shrek movie.
How bizarre
It's
is
just
that?
like the weirdest, like,
That is,
mind F's.
That's the Howie Mandela effect.
That's the
right
Howie
there.
Mandela effect.
We are gonna trademark.
Trademarked. The Howie Mandela effect.
Howie Mandela trademark.
I do have a couple more notes here
okay,
about
good. All right, let's
about
do
getting
it.
back on topic.
Oh, whatever.
Christ's
What are
sake.
we doing?
One thing I loved, and probably my favorite part of the movie, which I
Yep.
had already known going into
Yeah.
the movie, and I wish they spent more time on, was that he only had one Cobra. And he would loan it out to Motor Trend,
Yes, they did mention
Car
that.
and Driver, Road
Yeah.
and Track, and he would paint it a different color each time. So
Yep.
then each cover of all the magazines had a different color Shelby Cobra on the front.
Right.
People are like, oh, this is a new manufacturer. He's got cars
Right. All over
you
the
know,
place.
all
Oh,
over
yeah,
the place,
yeah.
where it was just
Yeah.
one. I think it ended up having like I think it was like 8 or 9 layers of paint on it.
I bet.
Which
I
I
bet.
think that car is actually in the Shelby Museum now, which
Mhm.
is on my bucket list to go see. And a guy did a recent review of it, and it's an
okay.
unrestored Cobra.
Yeah.
It'll never be for sale, allegedly.
Yeah.
And it's like it's so worn down, it's so beaten up.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a manufacturer sends a car out to Motor Trend and sends
Yeah.
a different car out to Road and Track.
Right.
And
Exactly.
when a company gets a car, they beat the snot out of it to see
Oh,
what
yeah.
the car can do.
Oh, yeah.
They launch it, they
Yeah.
drag race it, they
yep,
get
yep.
it on the skid pad,
Yep.
and they do all their measurements. At least back in the day. Now
Yeah.
people just kind of repost the manufacturer's statements.
Yeah.
But they used to test all these cars themselves. So you'd actually get magazines that said this car was 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. And a different magazine was like 0 to 60 in
Oh, yeah.
6.1 because
Right.
that's what they measured
Okay.
it at.
Yeah.
but so this original Shelby Cobra is so beat up and worn down because every magazine had its way with this car.
Well, yeah.
And he said that some of the instruments don't work in the car.
Wow.
And the right turn signal only works. It's constantly on.
Really?
If the car is on, the right turn signal is just on.
Wow.
Which is funny because I was like, oh, haha. And then there's a picture of it cruising down the road, and the right turn signal's lit up.
Wow. Yeah.
So I just thought that was a really cool part of the movie.
Yep.
Actually, really, Carroll Shelby's. See, that would be a great episode for the miniseries or the musical, where... Actually, a great musical part where they're respraying this Cobra. You know, like, you ever seen The Producers with Matthew Broderick?
That would be a great scene where they're respraying the Cobra.
And they just have, like, different fabric over it, and they pull it off.
Right,
like, with,
yes,
you
exactly,
know, like,
yes.
ooh, and then they're like,
Right.
respray it, respray it. And it's like, all day, every day, we respray it. And, you know,
you
so
gotta
like,
say it. We're going to respray it. Yeah, it's right. I mean, it's... Yeah, don't
then
delay it.
You just get a Shelby Cobra, and you somehow find a way to put fabric in it.
Yeah.
And you just keep pulling the different colors of fabric off
Yeah.
of it, like a clown pulls out a handkerchief.
Yeah, exactly.
And, wow, we're really writing this musical.
We actually, we've gotten pretty much most of it done.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to find someone to play the mumbling man, and other than that, I think
A
we're...
tip
we
of
gotta
the
go.
hat from Ferrari.
Yeah. But I thought that was so fascinating,
Yeah.
and just such a way of, like, if there's a will, there's a way, and, like, that's putting in the elbow grease, that's
gosh,
putting
yeah.
in, like... And, like,
Well,
it's just,
it's right.
like, coming up in any business, you know, I listen to a lot
Yeah.
of stand-up comedy and stuff, and a lot of comedians talk about they perform in laundromats.
Oh,
they get their start.
absolutely.
Laundromat will pay them $15 to stand up for an hour and just do some stand-up.
Yep.
They do all the back alley clubs.
Right,
They've gotten
absolutely.
beaten up. They've
Yeah.
gotten paid in food before.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
similar, you know, to my experience, I started reviewing our family's cars.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely,
the
yeah.
first two reviews were the G6 and the Ram, which were ours.
Oh,
Then I did
Yeah.
Grandma and Grandpa's
Yeah.
Cadillac.
yeah.
Then I did the Pacifica, which
Okay,
was
yeah.
ours.
Right. right. Yeah.
And then it was like the sixth car I did was a friend's car.
Yeah.
You know, it's now I have the luxury of people offer them to me.
Which is awesome.
and
so
I work
cool.
with dealerships
Yeah.
and manufacturers
Yep.
and things like that.
Yep.
But it's
Shout out
just
to Shooting Cars, by the way.
yeah,
too.
shout out to Shooting Cars, my other channel.
Yeah.
My actual channel.
Like the actual money making.
Yeah.
channel.
But
Yeah.
I really associated with that feeling of I don't have enough for this. I have to kind of fudge it in
Yeah.
order to be taken seriously.
Yep.
You know? And like
But you started out, and that was the cool thing, is that you just went out, because that's what I was going to say about just going out and doing it. With Carroll Shelby, that's exactly what he did, and that's what you do, is you just went out and started doing this, period. Doesn't matter.
yeah.
It doesn't matter what anybody said or did or whatever. You just went out and did it,
Yeah.
and then no matter what you had or didn't have going for you, you still continued to
And
do
you
it.
fall on your face a
Oh, yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Which
like
is
even last 2 weeks ago I had a
be
real
expected.
awkward bad moment.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's whatever. But like it's just part of the job where you go home with a terrible pit in your stomach.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I hope tomorrow's better.
Yep.
And it usually is. Sometimes it
Right.
isn't, but
Yeah.
you know, you just kind of take it in stride.
But that is the probably one of the biggest parts of success is failure and learning from
Yeah.
failure and going through those things. You cannot do something without failure. Again, okay, so business advice.
I was getting
just-
ready to say,
we're
so
just
hear more
giving-
on our TikTok account where we're
swipe
Gary
left or
V.
whatever. Swipe
You don't
up
know
or
who
down.
Gary V is,
I have
do
no
you?
idea.
Gary Vaynerchuk, he's this guy. He invests in a lot of stuff.
He's a guy.
and,
He's got a guy.
and he's always talking about hustle. He's always talking about hustle. Everything hustle, hustle,
Oh,
hustle.
Yeah.
And he posts on TikTok 24/7. He's on every platform. He's like it's all a mindset. It's all it's all a mindset. It's all about the hustle.
Yeah.
But he never really
Yeah.
gives much substance.
Okay,
He just
yeah.
keeps saying.
Yeah.
And there's a TikTok he put out where he's
Oh boy, here we
he's
go.
just like such an intense guy, but he's like also kind of full of BS sometimes. And he's like,
Okay.
I would literally rip my arms and legs off to be 25 again with the knowledge I know now. And it's just so absurd that it's
I
like,
wouldn't. Because
yeah, hey man, You'd be a nugget of a human
At
25. What's that going to do for you? You have no arms or legs.
Oh
But
no!
he's
yeah,
just trying to be
yeah.
so intense.
No,
whatever.
but I do truly believe that you got to put that time out there. You have to put in the 10,000 hours. You have to put out
in
that
whatever
work.
you do, in whatever it is that you do.
Absolutely 110%. Because I remember when I was learning, every time I would make a film when I was a kid, a Super 8 film, I would learn so much. And then the next film I made, I could add in that stuff that I learned, and I got better and better and better. But then it was like, okay, and when I put in that time when I worked for a video production company, and by the end of that, I could make just about anything because I was so used to it. I went through the ringer so many times. So, yeah, it's a matter of you just have to keep doing stuff.
That's actually why I number my reviews, and
That's good.
Almost never post them out of order that I filmed them in.
Okay.
I will jump the line if it's a very hot car, like the 2022 Civic.
Yeah.
The 2022 Honda Civic. They just redesigned it, and I reviewed it the second day it was out.
Yeah.
So I put out that video immediately. Why are you smiling?
No, because I was thinking. Oh, no, I was thinking of another. Never mind. It was another podcast that we did about Tyrese and Payne to be in Transformers.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, that popped into my head just now, Tyrese. I just love that whole story. But anyway, yes.
But I always post the videos in order.
Yeah.
Because in theory, now I know this isn't really true, but in theory, I want the viewers to be able to see the natural progression that my work takes.
Yep.
So you can look at, again, in theory, review number 555 is slightly better than 554. What?
Love that one.
Oh,
that
thanks.
Was, is it out yet? I don't even know.
No, it is. I don't know what it is. I'm up to 580 now, but
it's
anyway,
true though that you do.
The idea is that
better.
if you watch 554, 555 is slightly better.
Yeah.
And 556 is slightly better.
Yeah.
And 557 is slightly better.
Right.
That's the idea behind it. Now, is that true because I batch film them? Not always, but the idea that, it shows this progress.
It does, and it is one of the things that you do see, honestly, getting back to Carroll Shelby, that's exactly what he did was this constant work on constantly working on cars. Granted, he jumped around with, raising chickens and then having a chili cook-off and all the other stuff.
He was definitely a guy that was always doing different stuff.
Yeah.
He wasn't getting a gold Rolex for 40 years at a place.
No.
He always did something different and random.
Right.
And I feel as though that's the way my life is going.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy about. But
which is great because I mean, to me, that's an interesting life. There, maybe we'll be doing a musical about your life. I mean, it's,
I sure hope not. If I get to that point, man.
But no, really though, it's and different people. There are some people, and there's a ton of people out there actually. My father-in-law enjoyed working for a company all of his life.
Yeah,
and
telecommunication company for. What, 45 straight years, something like that?
42, 45, something like that.
Because he got a gold wristwatch
He literally
out of
got the gold wristwatch out of it. And that's what he liked to do, though. That was his gig. That was his deal. That was he wasn't.
His whole story is just.
It's amazing, but he started shoveling coal in the
boiler
train cars.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean it's an amazing journey that he took, but. He stayed with that company forever. That's why. Yeah. And at the time, corporations actually appreciated their workers.
Yeah.
So he got the retirement. He got the stocks. He got the, all the stuff, the gold watch and all those things for all those many years. But nowadays, it's a very different field. It's a very different landscape. You don't really have that anymore. So I truly believe. And this is another one of my business advice things.
Yeah.
I truly believe everyone should have a side hustle. You should always have something else that you do. Some other thing that you could make money on, only because in this world there isn't the kind of security that there used to be.
Yeah.
So you always need to have something else.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone needs a side hustle, but you have to have something that you would want to pursue if things went sideways. I don't know. I just feel like most people aren't interesting enough to have a side hustle.
Wow. Yikes. Well, I see. I think
that, yeah. That's
I-
a big critique of Gary Vee, where it's like people are like, "Hey, man, like you know, my friend's a high school dropout who works at Waffle House.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be
Shout
investing
out to Waffle
in
House. Love Waffle House, by the way. but
I passed by so many, I never went inside. I was a little scared.
Really?
I was really
Oh,
scared.
I love Waffle House. Anyway. Okay, maybe
but-
that's a throwback to my childhood of when we went down to Florida.
yeah.
And we'd go to Waffle House. But anyway.
But not everyone's an entrepreneur.
No,
Not everyone's
No,
an
I get you. I understand completely. Not everyone's an entrepreneur.
I know people that have done cocaine off of bathroom sinks, and it's like you don't need to be starting a company. You
who
can
hasn't?
just. Oh God.
No, but I agree that there are some people absolutely that it's just not. That's just not the way. That wouldn't work for them, the entrepreneurial spirit. But if they had something else that they could do, let's say they worked at a department store, and then during the day, and then at night they washed cars. Okay,
Yeah.
so that would be a side hustle. That would be something like if they went and worked for a car wash company. That would be their side thing. Even though they didn't own the company, they still had some other
That's fair.
side gig.
Yeah, I get that.
Some sort of side gig where they were making money because, unfortunately, layoffs happen all the time. I've been through so many of them that you just have to be as prepared as possible.
I mean, now growing up, having grown up in the 2000s,
Yep.
2008, and now,
Yep.
layoffs are just a part of regular business.
It is.
Like I
They are.
hear, someone close to me had their dad laid off.
Yep.
And it's like, oh yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
Hope you find it somewhere else. Where like layoffs didn't happen in the 60s and 70s, and
Not nearly like, and if they did, they were devastating.
Yeah,
it
well,
was really like it.
you
it
were
was
probably
big.
working for the DeLorean Motor Company. Or,
Well, true.
Or a little thing called Enron.
Right.
Had a
little
couple
little side
layoffs.
company there. Yeah, a little. Yeah, it was in, so DeLorean. Speaking of doing cocaine off a bathroom sink.
Yeah, shout out John DeLorean.
Right. So, anyway, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think. But to that point, though, Carroll Shelby always had stuff that he was doing,
Yeah.
which was great because, going from like being a chicken farmer,
Yeah.
race car driver,
Yeah.
chili cook-off guy, car designer
Yeah.
for Ford,
Yeah.
and really, and he actually did fly planes. He actually flew.
Again, something that they breezed over at
Yes,
the beginning.
true.
They're like, oh, he
Yeah.
loved flying planes
Yes.
as much as he loved driving
Yes, he
cars.
did. That's
Anyway,
right.
so we're going to talk about just the car part now.
That's a great way to put it because that's exactly how they
Let me
did it.
sprinkle in this fun
Right.
fact
That-
that was very pivotal to his life and then just never mentioned
You're
it
absolutely
again.
right. He loved fast things and he loved planes. Okay, cars.
All right, cool.
it was
Anyway,
like-
we'll talk about his cars and mysterious amount of wives,
Right, and
which actually they didn't really talk
no,
about.
they
so
didn't, and that was the thing. That was the other part about it. Was
that
they
was
didn't
the
really,
issue.
That was that was the thing is that, all of a sudden, like you said, there were certain things that I was like, oh, that's so cool. Why didn't you? Like
Yeah.
you said, why didn't you talk more about it? But we'll do that in our Netflix series, and maybe the musical will touch on
Maybe the
some things in
Netflix,
musical.
maybe the musical will be a spin-off of the Netflix series.
Okay.
And so,
All
like,
right.
we'll feature some of the Netflix people in the Broadway musical.
Right, that's a good idea.
So I do actually have a couple more notes here as I adjust
And
on
then
our $151 million couch.
So what? Yeah. So what we'll have is like a revolving carousel with the wives on the carousel. As he's wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, we could do. I went
Yeah.
to go see the producers
Oh.
in person.
Did
And
you?
they had like a carousel type thing spinning in the center.
Yeah.
They
Fun
used it for
movie,
a
some-
swastika.
Okay, great. Okay.
But
there you
we
go.
could use it.
I
We
guess
could
we could,
repurpose that.
Yeah.
For our Carroll Shelby
Excellent.
musical.
Right. Trademark 2000. What do we-
Yeah, 21. Couple more notes
Yes.
here.
A couple more notes. Yes.
First of all, I thought it was really interesting that they touched on prototype and GT class distinctions.
yes.
Were you aware of
yes.
this or no?
I did not know that.
So
that was very cool.
I've always known this.
No, I didn't know.
Because I'm super smart. And so the
You
prototype,
got it from me. Anyway, yeah.
the prototype, basically they could build whatever the heck they wanted.
Okay.
There
Which
wasn't
was
really
so
many
cool.
limitations,
I
which
didn't-
was really cool.
Didn't know that.
But the GT class is
Yeah.
more interesting.
Yeah.
Because the GT class requires a production requirement. Meaning,
Okay.
it changed year to year, but say you
Yeah.
wanted to race your let's just say a Lamborghini Countach,
Right.
since we have the poster of it in our $151 million studio.
Yes.
We have a single poster of a Countach, right? So
that I think we got for free. Yes.
if you wanted to race the Countach,
yes.
you had to legally sell 500 of them,
Okay. All right.
or else you couldn't race it.
Gotcha.
And so this has been a class requirement for years and years and years. I think it still is. So because it's so, manufacturers can't spend $1 million producing this amazing car
right.
for this class. It
Gotcha.
had to be a
Okay.
car that after watching it, you could go out and you could buy the car.
Yep.
It's the same story with the Superbird, the Plymouth Superbird that had like the super tall
right.
tail.
Yeah.
The reason they sold those cars was so that they could race them.
Interesting, yeah.
And there's actually a really interesting story. In the 80s, there was a rally group, Spec B Rally.
Okay.
It's a very short-lived rally series because it was like
Yeah.
very dangerous. It might actually not have been Spec B, but anyway, there was a manufacturer in Europe that had to pass the requirements for a number manufactured.
Yeah.
Basically, what would happen is a guy would fly out from whatever rally. I thought I saw a spider. I was looking up.
Ferrari Spider? Or?
Yeah, Ferrari spider.
Uh-huh.
Good joke. A guy would fly out and look at all the cars before they get sold. So he had to see that you had a manufacturer.
That's a job I want.
And I forget the company, but they rolled out literally one of them had a lawnmower engine in it. One of them was missing an interior, so
whatever.
they darked out the windows. Like there was a company that
Nice,
literally
I
like
like that.
pushed these cars into a parking lot. And I think if I remember correctly, they had a car in the shop for the guy to like fully inspect. And then they went and gave him lunch. And while he was getting lunch, they pulled that car outside and put it in the parking lot with the rest of the cars in order to make it appear like they had one more car.
Okay.
So he's
That's
like drinking
ingenuity.
coffee or
That's
smoking a cigarette or
right.
something. But anyway, I find it very interesting.
Doing a line of
that
coke
these-
off a bathroom sink. Anyway,
basically.
yeah. So,
that they
That's
have to
something.
have the production, which is cool, and that's what the Cobra Daytona raced in. So you
Very
had to have
cool.
been able to buy them, which was cool.
that was so cool, and I love the look of that car and everything. I think I just really think that could be another separate movie.
Yeah.
Is the spy?
You
the
really
Daytona.
latched onto the Daytona.
I did. I absolutely. I thought that was fascinating
Yeah.
to me. So anyway, but
And also, the last thing about the Daytona was
Yep.
fascinating that they were talking about the shape was pioneered in the late 1930s. Which
Yes,
was really,
it
really
was.
cool. Which,
Yes,
if
it
you look
was,
at
yeah.
car design in the 30s,
Yep.
we have a 31 Ford,
Right.
which is very traditional, chunky, boxy, no aerodynamics.
Go
If you look
efficient
at
of
the
like
end
a
of
drag.
the 30s,
Yeah.
whoever was still actually making cars, because not a lot of people were making cars in
No,
the late
that's true.
30s and early
That's
40s.
right. That is
They were
true.
making
Because
planes and
something
bombers.
happened during
Yeah.
that time. Yeah.
Yeah, a little group was mean to another little group in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they were very curvy at the end of the
Yes,
30s.
they were.
You
They
look
were.
at like Duesenbergs. You know, that's
Yep.
just what comes to mind. Rolls Royces. That's
Oh,
where like
very-
the
yeah.
Phantom
Yeah.
came from.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the Ghost, which
Yep.
literally looked like a ghost. And I remember
Yeah.
there was an advertisement of a ghost, like a goblin ghost,
Yeah.
Twilight Zone ghost.
Yeah.
Shout out, Rod Serling.
Yeah.
A ghost was grabbing like a Model A type car.
Yeah.
And then it was trying to grab the late 30s car, but it couldn't grab it because of all the swooping lines. There was
Okay.
nothing to grab
All
onto.
right, so
So that it was interesting that they used that in the Daytona.
very
Last
cool.
thing,
Yeah.
well, actually, I have a couple more notes here.
right.
Helped unveil the Viper, the
Oh,
Dodge
yes.
Viper.
Yes,
and he
yes,
said
yes,
it
yes,
was
yes.
a modern. He said this is a true successor to the Cobra.
Yes.
Which is interesting because I have driven a Viper.
Have you?
I brought it to your work.
I don't remember.
Do you really not remember that?
No, I do remember
Because
now
that
you
was like
say
that was
Now that you
probably one
said
of
it.
the shining moments of my earlier career.
That is true. Yes, that's right.
because I had a 98 Dodge Viper for the day.
And
And I
actually,
brought it to your work
Yes.
just to show you and
but
your
I
coworkers.
showed. Remember, I showed someone else. I brought like a coworker with me or something to show
Yeah,
them.
because you guys would like walk laps in the parking
Yes,
garage, like on your
exactly,
lunch
to-
break
for
to get
exercise, yeah.
exercise, just to get out of the office. And I forgot who it was.
I don't know if it was Sue, maybe Sue.
I think so. But anyway, that was like I feel like that legitimized me as like
Yeah.
a
yeah.
car
Oh,
reviewer when
yeah.
I showed up in
Yeah.
a 98 Viper
Yeah.
and I had to have your help closing the hood
That's right.
because it was a
That's right, yeah.
$15,000
Yeah.
hood
Right.
that if you didn't align it properly, would
Yeah.
bend and warp because
Right.
it was fiberglass.
Yep.
That
Yeah, that was a
saw
crazy
the first
car, but-
fiberglass car ever made.
But-
Yesterday, 2 days ago.
Did you?
Yes.
But you're right. That was a very cool car. It was, and you're right. In as to the Carroll Shelby to say that this was the successor, kind of cool. Obviously,
Yeah.
they have the Viper being,
It's
with
a
the
snake,
Cobra, it's
yeah.
a snake, the whole thing. Yeah.
And I think it's a true successor because the car was not easy to drive, not easy to handle. It was a handful.
Yeah.
It was one of the last vehicles to have a V10 that
Yeah.
didn't have traction control.
Yeah,
I don't know if it had anti-locking brakes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a true, they threw a giant engine into a little car and said, "Good luck, Charlie."
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it. So that was
True.
cool seeing that he helped Lee Iacocca bring out the Viper.
Yeah, and you could tell in this movie, in this documentary, you could tell that they were friends. You could
Yeah.
tell that Lee Iacocca and he were friends, and that they had this ongoing thing where it was kind of like, yeah, okay, you know how to do certain things.
Yeah, you
Iacocca knew how
scratch
to
my
do,
back,
yeah,
I'll scratch yours
exactly.
type thing.
And they knew how to market and stuff.
And
yeah.
something else I wanted to talk
Yep.
about with Lee Iacocca was
Yep.
that they actually worked on some Dodge products. There was some
Oh, yeah.
Shelby Dodge products.
Yes.
There was the Shelby Charger.
Yes. I remember the Shelby Charger.
But
I
more
do.
importantly,
Yeah.
there was the Dodge Omni.
Yes.
Shelby,
That was the other
which was
thing,
the
right.
main thing that they breezed over that I wish that they didn't.
Yeah,
So the
exactly, yeah.
Dodge Omni
Yep.
Shelby was a
Yeah.
2.2 liter single overhead cam inline 4 that was turboed.
Oh.
So it made 156 horsepower. And then the GLHS made 128 horsepower.
Okay.
It was
All
only
right.
available in the
Yep.
5-speed manual, which was cool.
Okay.
And then, do you know what? So it was the Dodge Omni GLH. Do you know what that
Okay.
stands for? They breezed over it. They didn't even mention it in the movie, I don't think.
No, I don't remember
So it's the
that at all.
Dodge Omni GLH. GLH was named by Carroll Shelby
Yeah.
for Goes Like Hell.
Really?
Yeah. So it sounds like GLH like now we have Acura's SH all-wheel
Right.
drive system. It just
Yeah.
sounds like some
Right, yeah.
jargon or whatever,
Yeah.
some internal jargon from the manufacturer, which SH is just super handling all-wheel drive.
Yes.
But this is Goes Like Hell, and then so those were made from 1984 to 1986.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Goes Like Hell, the choice of Carroll Shelby. And then Shelby Automobiles purchased the final 500 1986 GLH Omnis
Yeah.
to construct the Shelby GLHS, which stands for Goes Like Hell S'more.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, some like S apostrophe more. So
Did you do you remember the Omni DLC?
no?
Drives like crap.
Is that
No, that was not.
Oh, wow.
I just totally made that up. But
There's the Mazda
Yep.
GLC. I'm not kidding.
maybe that is the Ghost like crap.
Probably.
But no,
Um,
it's yeah.
But I love the Dodge Omni Shelby so much. Never
Yeah, it
driven
was-
one.
it
I don't
was
know
cool,
if I've ever
though.
seen one.
I've seen them. I remember seeing them.
But
But
the Omni
yeah.
was just a little economy piece of
Yep.
trash car.
It
It was
was.
built off the K platform.
yeah.
Shout out Lee Iacocca.
Wow. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
shout out Lee Iacocca for the K platform.
Yeah.
It was a little hatchback, but the late 80s were kind of where hot hatches were starting to come around.
Yeah. True.
I mean, the GTI was the late 70s, but who's really counting?
Well, I had the '80s Chevy Chevette hatchback.
That was the
Four-door.
hottest of hatches because you didn't have AC. That's not why they're called hot hatches, Dad.
That was a GLC. Goes like crap.
Yeah, that was a goes
Goes
like
like
no
that.
floorboards.
Yeah, that was floorboards. That is a misnomer. That whole thing was anyway.
What
go
car
on.
did you have that didn't have floorboards?
No, it was okay. So I.
Okay, hold on. I didn't say it had no
Right.
floorboards.
Right.
I just said you could see through them.
There was a hole in the floorboard, so you could see. It had floorboards, but you could see the ground. Also, in my '69 Chevy Impala, that also had no
Okay.
like big holes in the floor. You could see right through to the ground.
Yeah. But that's
So I was
something I
very
wish that they
proud of
spent
that.
more time on was the Omni and
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
relationship between him and Lee Iacocca,
But
who also
yeah.
deserves a documentary. Lee Iacocca.
Oh yeah, but
such a fascinating guy.
Absolutely, but I think that was part of our whole Netflix series is these little cool things. But there's so many
Maybe-
things that there.
Maybe we do like a intermission Lee Iacocca monologue. I don't know.
a rapping Lee Iacocca.
My name is Lee Iacocca, and you can get your drinks now. I worked at Ford and also Chrysler.
Go grab a Lee Iacocca.
Oh, yeah. Get a little product placement in there. But then if we get that revoked, he'd be like, grab a Lee Pepsi product. Grab yourself a Lee Pepsi.
Just a really bad overtone of that part of it. Yeah,
he'll be animatronic. This is just a Disney show. We're taking out the Pirates of the Caribbean and putting in the Lee Iacocca show. Actually, Disney World has the GM sponsored test track.
Do they?
Where you design your own car.
No,
I didn't get to do that.
Oh,
it was in a park I didn't go to.
Well,
but
also,
GM sponsors Disney World.
You have to understand too that I think it was Hurricane Elsa that was coming in while you were down there.
Yeah.
So not like you could have spent a whole lot of time down there.
Oh, my girlfriend's family's still there.
Are they?
It's getting poured on every single day.
Are they okay? I
They're
mean, should we check on them?
Well, to be fair, I haven't heard from her today, but
oh my God,
it's fine.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're getting nailed with rain right now.
All right.
But it's funny because Disney World, like you go into the gift shops and they have little Chevy Traverses with Mickey Mouse on them.
They do?
And then we went to Hollywood Studios, which is 1930s themed.
Yes.
Because like the Tower of Terrors and 1930s hotel.
Yeah.
I kept saying to Bella to the point where she was getting pissed. I was like, I wish I could trailer the Model A down here and just park it on one of these streets because it's all 1930s themed.
That's very cool.
And they had a billboard up that was a 1930s Chevy billboard.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and
That's
I was like,
cool. Yeah,
because
I like that.
even though they sponsor the park, they put like a period correct sponsorship
But that's so
up,
cool,
which
though.
was
I think,
so cool.
I think that's really
I don't
neat.
know if I took
like
a picture of it.
No, so shout out to Disney World.
Shout out to Disney. I actually loved Disney so much.
Did you? I'm
loved
glad.
it.
We're definitely going to go down, by the way, as a family. You don't know this. But
Okay.
Yeah, this is a surprise. So.
All right. Well, thanks.
But,
I don't know if I could do multiple days of it. We'll see.
I know.
It's
I know. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Expensive. It was $160 for one day, one ticket for me. So.
Well, that's a long story. We'll talk about it later. But anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, it's the Disney World.
Disney World.
One more note I had here. One of the last cars that he okayed before he died, Carroll Shelby, was the 2007 Shelby Mustang GT500.
Yeah.
Which I've driven, and I hate with a passion.
Really?
I hated it.
Why?
Hated it.
Why did you hate it so much?
It drove like garbage. So here's the thing.
So it was a DLT, drove like garbage.
Yeah, DLG.
DLG.
Yeah. It first of all, I had such a hype for it.
Yeah.
Because this car debuted and they immediately put it in the film I Am Legend with Will Smith. And it's where he's the last man in New York City, right?
Okay,
and he's ripping this car through the streets.
Okay.
And it's cherry red, white stripes.
Yeah.
And he's going.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know, it's a really cool scene where, like, the first part of I Am Legend where he's alone, it kind of makes it seem like it's super cool.
Yeah.
Where he's like, he has like the mannequins up in the music store, and he's like saying hi, and he's just like taking whatever music he wants. He's driving this GT500 through the city, and I'm like, wow, the GT500, that's so cool. So I drove it, and I got into one. It was a convertible, and I got into it, manual, supercharged V8.
Yeah.
And it sucked.
Really? Wow.
The shifter felt terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like it was described to me, and this reign's true, like if you put a stick into a bucket of gravel.
Yeah.
And then it was like going into gear. It wasn't smooth.
Well, and that's the great thing about the fact that you've driven so many cars is you can take a look and you have the experience of the other ones.
Right.
So you know when a car feels wonky.
Yeah.
Like it's,
and the issue with it is that up until recently, Mustangs did not have independent rear suspension, meaning that they had straight axles in the back. Like a pickup truck or my first gen RX-7.
Yeah, okay.
Which it's never an issue in my first gen RX-7 because I'm pushing 180 horsepower at the
Don't we have that in the
most.
garage, the back end of
Not anymore. It's
No?
at Adrian's shop.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's
Okay.
getting refinished to put into the car.
All right, well that'll be cool.
Yeah. There's a lot less crap in that corner.
Which is great, yeah.
But
Shout
it
out
has
to
a
less
straight
crap in the corner.
it has a straight axle. So when
Okay.
the car starts twisting or loading on the rear suspension, it can't really manage that weight transfer all that well.
That makes sense.
And so every chance the car got, it just broke the back end loose.
Oh.
I was coming around a corner in the dry, second gear, barely on throttle,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, you want to skid this corner? Let's do it. And
okay.
it was just I had to babysit the car to drive.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I did get it in a straight line. I did do a pull, and it didn't want to stay in the straight line. It was very scary to drive, and it wasn't as fast as. It wasn't fast enough to justify being terrified.
Was it Too Fast, Too Furious?
It was Tokyo Drift.
It was
It was a Tokyo Drift Mustang. And what I mean by that is, so my friend built I just drove it a couple days ago. He built a Volvo station wagon from the 90s, a square body,
Really?
old blue station wagon.
Yeah.
It has a Corvette engine in it.
I was
going
gonna
to
say, so it's a sleeper?
It makes 650 wheel horsepower.
Jeez, it's a sleeper.
That is terrifying to
Yeah.
drive, but it's reasonable because it makes 650 horsepower, it has a turbo,
Yeah.
and you're driving a Volvo station wagon.
Yeah. there's that.
This Mustang, it just wasn't good, and the reason I bring that up is because I feel like, they were like, oh, Shelby was back designing cars. And, like, they made it a whole point of this movie, and they're like, he's back to his roots.
Right.
And then I was like, I don't want a car designed by an 85-year-old. I realized maybe, just maybe, he wasn't on top of his game anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Shelby
Gotcha.
Cobras are
Yep.
amazing and untouchable. But towards the end of his life, the other thing is going back to his name. I don't know if he just slapped his name on whatever the Ford designed.
Could have been.
Because
It could have been.
I believe it had a Triton V8,
Okay.
which the Triton V8 is out of like the F-150s of the era.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that much of a performance engine.
Right.
So I don't know how much he had in like how much of a hand he had in designing this Shelby GT500, but
Well, it was interesting.
It felt like just a cheap. He put
Yeah.
his name on it. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'd be cooler if he put his name on more chili than this freaking Mustang.
Would have been more delicious, or
Definitely
enjoyable.
delicious.
So yeah, I mean, actually, remember they did mention that in the documentary that the Ford team swapped out the engine at the last minute. Remember that they mentioned
That's
that?
something they breezed over in Ford versus
Yes,
Ferrari. The car just
exactly.
lost at Le Mans, and then they're like,
Yes.
all right, we got to go back next year.
Right.
That was really interesting that Ford was like, no, you have to switch the engines.
Right.
Which that is a huge deal.
Enormous. That
Not
is
necessarily the actual process of swapping the
Yeah.
engine because the teams have that down so
Right.
much. But you do practice runs. You get this car tuned up to every nut and bolt.
Yep.
Is good. And then the engines ended up failing them.
Yes, it did. They all did.
The
They-
head bolts stretched.
right. They all,
Which is
all of
very
them.
much a old V8
Yeah,
problem.
Yeah. But that was a big issue. But that was a huge mistake that the corporation. I'm surprised that they didn't make more of it in the Ford versus Ferrari movie. Like that would have been an obvious.
Yeah,
like,
because Ford
wow.
versus Ferrari was kind of all about sticking it to the man.
Yes,
and
it
that's
was.
kind of exhibit A of like, hey, the
Yep.
man messed
That-
up.
big time messed up. Like that's
Yeah.
not a small deal. That's like a bunch of like the Ford engine designers going, no, we're gonna put our
Yeah.
Ford engine in, and then they mess it up completely. Yeah, I mean, and then they show how Carroll Shelby.
Did you just forget his name?
I used to
Are you
work.
stroking out right now?
No,
What are you doing?
I used to work for a company called Carroll Shelby.
Oh, that's
Yes.
annoying.
So Carroll Shelby.
Yeah.
But he, oh gosh, totally threw me off there. But basically, he and his team had it down, and then they threw in this engine, which totally mucked up everything.
Yeah,
So,
which is exhibit A of the suits
Yeah.
messing everything
right,
up.
exactly. So,
So
all right. Do you want to talk about? Well, first of all, do you want to talk about? You have anything else that you want to add?
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
Do you want to talk about? Would you change channel? Would you?
I would change the channel.
Yeah, I probably would too. Honestly,
here's the thing. Honestly,
Yeah.
when I do go to the Carroll Shelby Museum at
Yeah.
some point,
Yeah.
and it's this movie's probably going to be playing up on a TV,
right.
I'll stop and I'll look at it
Yeah.
for like
Yeah.
a minute,
Yeah.
and then I'll check my phone and be
Yeah.
like, oh, what's over here?
Yeah.
And then I'll walk over to the
Mhm.
memorabilia section or the Cobra section
Right.
or, whatever.
I would, because I would probably change the channel at.
Yeah, once the guy starts mumbling,
Yeah.
I gotta go,
No,
man.
it's there. There were too many people saying too many things. I would love to have had one consistent narrator
Yeah.
bringing the story through, and then you pop in these really cool people That would have been really cool to me.
If you care a lot about
to
Carroll
be-
Shelby
yeah.
and racing and,
Yep.
you know, if you wear New Balances and jean shorts on the weekends, this is the movie for you.
Yeah.
Because this gives you a lot of ammunition for going out to the bar and being
It
like,
does.
oh, did you know
Yeah.
Carroll Shelby had 2,000 chickens that died? It's very good for Carroll Shelby trivia night.
Yeah.
But as an enjoyable film, I
Right.
don't think I'd like it. Maybe, you know, one
Right.
day when I'm 75 years old and essentially a part of the Lazy Boy recliner
Perhaps.
I own,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll probably have this on repeat along with other documentaries.
Did you say 75?
Yeah.
You're not going to be 75 and be like that. That's like 85, 90.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
So
like when I become
95.
the structurally integral
Yeah,
to
okay.
a Lazy Boy
Okay.
recliner.
All right. So I don't know when
um,
that's going to be, but yeah.
You know, it's just like, you know, like guys your age, you know, you're starting to get into World War II era. A lot of my friends' dads
It's true.
just watch World War
Yeah.
II documentaries, and that's their entire hobby.
Yeah.
Is just watching World War II documentaries, where you just hear like,
those are-
"Boop, boop, 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 boop,"
Yeah.
and then it's like, and in the summer of '39, yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Exactly.
in the Pacific Theater,
Yeah,
and,
right.
yeah, and then you're like, oh, they're passed out with a
Yeah.
Diet Coke on their
Yeah,
chest. That's cool. So I assume
Yeah.
I'll be that point.
You
know,
probably will be at
you
some
know,
point.
80
I don't
or
even know how
90
we
or-
got to that, but okay. So
I would
I-
change the channel.
you would change the channel. I would change the channel. I would not that it was great to watch once.
Yeah.
I wish it would have been a little bit different. Now the musical, okay.
Now the
The
musical.
musical. Now we're talking.
I'm charging a premium for those tickets. That's
That's
going to be
right.
a hot
That
commodity.
is right because that's
Who's
gonna be
Hamilton? Who is, you know?
Who is Cats?
Yeah.
Who is Cats?
No one. Well, no one knows what
No,
Cats
they
is
don't.
about
Yeah,
anyway.
that's
I saw
true.
the movie Cats, and
Yeah,
I didn't even know.
That's a bad movie.
Yeah.
That's what everyone
Anyway.
said. I never saw it, but yeah.
So coming up, we have a very
Yes.
special
Okay, so
event for you
thinking of-
guys.
Yeah.
We're entering the month of October.
Yes.
There's a very
Yes.
special holiday in
Yes.
October.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. No, it is
No.
starring Bill Murray. It's Halloween. It's
Halloween,
spooky month
yes.
this
Woo.
month.
Oh,
So we'll be
yeah.
doing because
Sorry.
yeah. Are you doing the like
I'm
the,
doing the sound effects.
the Midwestern porch decoration that everyone? Yeah, and like the eyes light up when you get like what. That was really good.
Isn't that pretty close? All right.
Man, that just reminds me of growing up,
Yeah.
going to Menards
Yeah.
and hitting all the
Oh,
buttons,
gosh,
and it's
yeah.
like the shaking.
So I love Halloween. By the way, I want
Yeah,
I want
oh yeah,
you to
this
know
is
that
your favorite
this
season.
is my favorite time of the year is Halloween. I actually am taking time off before Halloween and after Halloween. I'm taking time off of work because I enjoy it so much and I love like putting up decorations. And I have a friend. Shout out to Leo McNamee.
Yeah.
Because he has like the coolest. In fact, he may even be.
He might be on the
part of it.
podcast.
Yeah.
He might be a special guest.
But he has this really cool layout and stuff. What he does for Halloween. So we love Halloween. So what are we gonna do?
So, and very
Yeah.
special this year. We
Yes.
have 5 Saturdays
Yes,
in October.
five October Saturdays.
So we will be doing spooky car movies. I don't have the list in front of me. I don't know where the list
No.
went of the official movies that we'll be watching.
Going like a ghost.
But we'll be watching next week is Ghostbusters.
yeah.
The
go-
Ecto one, all-time favorite.
Oh yeah. Ghostbusters going to be a good one.
And I
yeah.
know right before Halloween we'll be doing Christine.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Ghostbusters?
Yes, I have a million times.
Me too. So okay.
We'll
So
be doing
and then Christine,
Ghostbusters, Christine,
Yep.
Death Proof.
Probably Death Proof.
What was the other ones?
Uh.
There was the Blood Car, which is the Amazon movie about a car that runs on human blood.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that one.
Oh, and the
maybe.
car. We'll
And
be
the car,
watching
and
the car.
Maybe possibly even Pumpkinhead. I got to take a look at that one. But yeah, the Pumpkinhead is supposed to be a good.
Oh
scary movie.
yeah. We'll see. So
We'll see.
anyway, we're not 100% sure what movies we're doing, but Halloween will all be the spooky car movies.
For October.
For October,
Yep.
and that will be shown. The thumbnails will have a little pumpkin icon on them.
Yes.
So
good.
if you are not a fan of scary movies, don't want to hear
Yeah.
about scary movies,
Yeah.
look for anything that doesn't have the pumpkin icon.
Yep.
Just to keep
Although,
it. You know.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters is not
it's
scary.
like not scary, but it's
if you're
fun.
a child, maybe. But yeah, so next week will be
Right.
Ghostbusters. The Ecto one we'll be
Yeah.
talking a lot about. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll probably even maybe venture into Ghostbusters 2 and talk about
We
the
might.
Ecto 1A.
Oh yes, that's true.
Because they
that
actually
is right.
change it between the second
They did
movie.
change it. There is also that other Ghostbusters movie with the women.
I've never seen that one.
And that is a very different Ecto 1. That's not even an Ecto 1. That's like a totally...
Well,
different.
I'm kind of on board with that Ecto 1.
That one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Because I heard the theory behind it
Yeah.
was the fact that in the original Ghostbusters, the Ecto 1 that they got out of the junkyard or whatever was 25 years old.
Yeah.
When they made the new Ghostbusters, the Ecto 1 that they used was 25 years old.
Oh, was it really? Okay.
So it was
all
the
right.
same.
Okay.
It was the same time period
Gotcha.
gap.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
anyway,
Yeah,
we'll save
so
that
was it-
for next episode. We are
Yep.
entering October, which is
Yep.
spooky season, and I'm super excited to do some spooky. Yeah. Maybe we'll even make an intro song or something.
Yeah.
Halloween themed intro song.
Well, we got a lot of work to do because we're also doing the musical for Shelby American or whatever.
Oh yeah, well, we got to
Shelby,
write and produce our
Shelby,
Broadway
Carroll Shelby.
Ford versus Ferrari. Maybe we could get Christian Bale to play every character.
including the Ferrari.
And he'll just bulk up during the intermission. He'll eat all of the concession snacks to become Henry Ford II, and then he'll run a lot and do his coffee and apple a day, and he'll slim back down to play Ken Miles at the end.
Ken Miles, yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh, yeah.
thank you guys so much for listening. Maybe check out Shelby American. You don't have to. It's on Netflix. We forgot to mention that it's on Netflix.
It is on Netflix. So
thank you guys so much for listening. Listen to us on Spotify or YouTube. That's pretty much it. Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye.